Good evening. In the earlier class, we understood that 124th Constitution Amendment Bill became 103 Constitution Amendment Act. So, what was the procedure, how it was done, and what is the content in Constitution Amendment Bill? All these things we understood very clearly and completely. Now, there is a question among various sections of the society that why this particular amendment bill was not sent to the state legislatures for its ratification, right? And some people are saying that so this is because it is in fundamental rights, so then there is no requirement of sending it to this to the ratification of the state legislatures. So now the point is that whatever their argument, that argument is right only to answer, right to an extent only to say that since it is a part of fundamental rights. But tomorrow there is a possible. This is for general people understanding, right? Meaning who are not seriously preparing for general people in the sense these are the people who are not seriously preparing for the this any competitive examination. But since you are preparing for a very serious competitive examination or examinations, it may be a question for you in the descriptive type of these questions. So you should be able to write it very clearly and elaborately. Tomorrow you may go to any interview, like our UPSC aspirants, civil service aspirants are going to attend the interview. If it is a question tomorrow, what should be your answers? Fine, if you just say since it is the fundamental rights, it's the amendment in the fundamental rights, there is no necessity to send it to state legislatures. And they may also ask you a question immediately. If it is DPSP, then what will happen? If it is fundamental duties, then what happens? Like this, there may be some extension of the questions only to test the ability of the candidates. That's it. So nothing else. So obviously, so whenever you are writing an examination, whenever you are attending an interview, the ability of the candidate is tested because you are going to appear for the topmost level in the topmost examination in the country or at the state level. So you are expected to know this. So now I am going to tell you what exactly is this now. If you want to amend the constitution, the procedure has been laid down under article 368 of the constitution, right? So this we know, meaning constitution has permitted the parliament and the parliament alone to initiate the procedure for amending the constitution. And constitution made it very clear that procedure can be initiated only by introducing a bill in the parliament for the purpose of amending the constitution. That is the reason why, so we call it a bill. But this bill is meant for amendment of the constitution. That is the reason why it is called constitution amendment bill, right? So now we are very clear about this. So you have to initiate only the parliament. So obviously, when you want to amend the constitution, introduce a bill in the parliament, Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. After it is passed in both the houses, then it will be forwarded to the assent of the president, and the president must sign. President cannot send back the bill for reconsideration. The moment it is signed by the President of India, this Constitution Amendment Bill becomes Constitution Amendment Act. So these are the things. But the same article 368, also mentions something about where state legislatures will come into picture. And Article 368 has given very clearly and categorically, if any constitution amendment bill is referring to certain articles of the constitution, certain schedules of the constitution, certain chapters in any part of the constitution, they must be referred to the state legislatures for the purpose of ratification. And constitution also made it very, very clear that not all the states, but at least half the state legislatures must ratify this with a simple majority. After that, the bill will be forwarded to the President of India and the President will sign, it becomes an act. Simple point. Meaning, under Article 368 of the Constitution, there are two methods that have been mentioned for the amendment of the Constitution. First procedure is introduce the bill in the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, then it will go to the President of India. Second step also, you have to introduce a bill in the Parliament only, meaning amendment procedure must be initiated in the Parliament according to the Constitution. Hence, if the bill is introduced in the Parliament, that is Lok Sabha, then it will go to Rajya Sabha. Otherwise, first you introduce in Rajya Sabha, then it goes to Lok Sabha. But if that amendment bill is referring to certain articles, is referring to certain schedules, before before you send it to the President of India, that bill must be sent to the ratification of state legislatures. So meaning is very, very simple. In the procedure number two, after both the houses of the Parliament, before it goes to the President of India, the bill is forwarded to the state legislatures. And in the state legislatures, if it is accepted by not less than half of the state legislatures, then the bill will be forwarded to the President of India. Then it will become an act. Right? For example, you see, when we introduced GST, Goods and Services Tax 101 Constitution Amendment Act, how this bill was introduced? Bill was introduced in the Parliament. After it was passed by both the houses of the Parliament, before it goes to the President of India, the bill was sent to the ratification of the state legislatures. So because constitutions make it very, very clear, because you are trying to touch certain areas of the Constitution, and if you're touching those areas, you must take the ratification of at least half of the state legislatures is a must, not for everything. That's the reason why, for the examination point of view, you should be thorough with Article 368, and you should also know on what areas, right, when you're amending certain areas, what are those areas. For those, you have to take the ratification. You have to get the ratification of the state legislatures, right? You need not worry. Everything is mentioned in the Constitution itself. Now let's try to look into that particular article, and it will be easier for you. And kindly remember, whatever I am going to show you, if the Constitution Amendment Bill is related to that, then the bill must be sent for the ratification of the state legislatures. Apart from this, if you are touching any area for the purpose of amending the Constitution, then you need not send it to the ratification of the state legislatures. Am I clear? That's the reason why the finance minister was very categorically saying that this bill doesn't require the ratification of the state legislatures, because the area that you are modifying, the area that you are amending here, that is falling out of the purview of the areas that have been mentioned in this particular article. That's it. Clear? So if there is a question in the examination, you need to write it very systematically, because this particular, the content of this particular this constitution, and wherever you are amending, that is falling out of these areas. That's the reason why it did not require the consideration or ratification of the state legislatures. That's it. So now I am going to open the document. I would like to show you this. Kindly have a look at this. Now, look at this. Procedure for the amendment of the Constitution. Power of Parliament to amend the Constitution and procedure, therefore, notwithstanding anything in this Constitution, Parliament may, in exercise of its constituent power, amend by the way of addition, variation, of repeal, or repeal of any provision of this Constitution in accordance with the procedure laid down in this article. Meaning is simple. Constitution is giving the power to amend the Constitution only to the Parliament. Is it clear? But how do you amend? Amend means modification. But how do you modify? How do you amend? You can amend by adding something, addition, variation, meaning changing which is already existing, or repeal, removing something, right? And what is it you are doing? Any provision of this constitution, any provision of this constitution, but it should be in accordance with the procedure laid down in this article, right? If you want to do this, you are very much permitted, but you need to follow the procedure that is mentioned under article 368. Clear? Now if you look at this, go further, look at this. An amendment of this constitution may be initiated only by the introduction of a bill for the purpose in either house of the parliament. What do you mean by this? Amendment procedure can be initiated in the parliament only. For this purpose, you need to introduce the bill. Where do you introduce the bill? In either house of the parliament. If it is Lok Sabha, no problem. If it is Rajya Sabha, no problem. It can be introduced anywhere. And when the bill is passed in each house by a majority of the total membership of that house present and voting, it shall be presented to the president. Look at this very, very clearly. Bill must be passed by both the houses by a majority of the total membership, meaning with a special majority. Very, very important. Then only the bill will be forwarded to the president. Who shall give his assent? Who shall means it is compulsion, it is mandatory on the part of the President of India to give assent to the bill. And thereupon the constitution shall stand amended in accordance with the terms of the bill. Immediately after that, what happens? It is considered to be the amendment of the constitution. Look at this last line. Provided that if such amendment seeks to make any change in, very, 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 very important one. Clear? In the paragraph number 2, my dear close friends, till the last line, we are referring only to Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and to the president. But last but one line is very important for our discussion here. Provided if such amendment seeks to make any change in, what is that you are trying to change here? If you are trying to change something in Article 54, Article 55, Article 73, Article 162, or Article 241. Very, very, very important. If you are trying to make any change with respect to Articles 54, 55, 73, 162, or 241, or Chapter 4 of Part 5, Chapter 5 of Part 6, or Chapter 1 of Part 11. Look at this very clearly. And if you're going to write the same thing in the examination, you will get full marks for this. So what are the chapters and in which part it is present, that is important. Chapter 4 of Part 5, Chapter 5 of Part 6, of Part 7, right? Sorry, Chapter 5 of Part 6 and Chapter 1 of Part 11, or any of the list in the 7th schedule. We know that there are 3 lists in the 7th schedule: union list, state list, and concurrent list. Is that okay? Or the representation of the states in the parliament, or the provisions of this article. The amendment shall also require to be ratified by the state legislatures of not less than one half of the states by resolution to that effect passed by those legislatures. Very, 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 very important. Clear? And whatever the points you are looking at, A, B, C, D, and E. Is that okay? I'll just pull it down so that it will be clear to you. Yes. So now you can see point A, B, C, D, and E. If you are trying to amend the constitution with relation to any of these points, then you must seek the ratification of the, at least half of the state legislatures. before the bill goes to the assent of the president. Am I clear? So what is this article 54, 55? We'll check up now. But the point is that with respect to 124th Constitution Amendment Bill, none of the points has been touched here. None of the points has been touched like A, B, C, D, E. No point has been touched. That is the reason why there was no necessity for sending 124th Constitution Amendment Bill for the ratification of the state legislatures. Am I clear? Very, 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 very important. Is it okay? So hope you got it now. This is the reason why since 124th Constitution Amendment Bill is not touching point A, B, C, D, or E, that was the reason why the bill was not sent for the ratification of the this state legislatures. Is that okay, my dear friends? As I told you in the beginning of this class, like you may say, since this is the part of fundamental rights, there was no requirement for the for sending for the ratification of the state legislatures. That is right, but in the general perception, that is right. But being an aspirant of group 1 examination, being an aspirant of IAS, so you have to be very clear about this. So if you write in this manner, in a systematic manner, without making any mistakes, so you will be getting the marks onto this. Am I clear? Now once again, let me open the document. Look at this. Look at this. So what are the areas? Articles 54, 55, 73, 162 and 241. So what are the chapters? Chapter 4 in part 5, chapter 5 in part 6, chapter 1 in part 11, or any of the lists in the 7th schedule. And we know there are 3 lists in the 7th schedule. And the representation of the states in the parliament are the provisions of this article. What do you mean by point number E? The provisions of this article. If the parliament wants to amend article 368, if parliament wants to amend article 368 itself, even then the parliament has to go by the same procedure, like getting the ratification of the half of the state legislatures. Look at this, right? So article 54 is mentioning about all these points we have discussed during our Indian polity classes. You can just have a look at this. Article 54, president shall be elected by the members of an electoral college consisting of the elected members of both the houses of the parliament and elected members of the legislative assemblies of the states. Okay. Similarly, article 55, manner of election of the president. Article 73, extent of executive powers of the parliament. Article 162, extent of executive powers of a state subject to the provisions of this constitution. Article 241, high courts for union territories. Chapter 4 of part 5 is mentioning about the union judiciary. Similarly, chapter 5 of part 6 is mentioning about the high courts, and similarly chapter 1 of part 11 is mentioning about the legislative relations between union and the states. That's it. Right? So hope you got it now. Very, very, very important. Right? So that's the reason why for every serious aspirant of any competitive examination, going into the depth of the subject is very important. Is it okay? For general people who are not interested to write any competitive examination, general view will suffice, but not for serious candidates like you. Right? It may be a question in the written examination, it may be a question in the this during your personality test, that is interview, and you should be able to answer this. Clear? And at the particular stage, if you just say that I don't know, or if you just say because it is this part of fundamental rights, so that what will happen? So that will not be creating so much of impression, right? Since you are Since this is an aspect which is very much there in the news, you should be thorough with that. Clear? So that's the reason why I took a special session on this, and hopefully the doubts, if you have any, right, so I might have got cleared. Fine. So thank you so much for being with me this evening, and I'll see you in the next class with the more current affairs. Thank you. Good night.